Alright, hello, this is Nima Goldby on KUCI 88.9 Irvine, and this is the next episode of Rollercoaster in the Clouds. So, the past three episodes we did, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. We did episode 4, we did episode 5, we did episode 6 with my friend Alex, and his friend Eric came on the last show, and we talked about the finale, and that all was very fun. But today I'm all alone, and I was thinking that I started my first episode on this show slash my YouTube channel that I post my shows. Um, I was talking about Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and I'm just gonna quick go see like on my YouTube channel what season did I end at, and we'll pick up from there. So Rollercoaster in the Clouds KUCI, you just type that in on YouTube and you'll find my channel. Just gonna quick check. So we did I didn't list what I did. Okay, I didn't put it in my title is what I'm saying. Let me look at the IMDb page and maybe I'll be able to remember where I stopped. I probably stopped at season 3 if I remember. Yeah, you know what? I stopped halfway into season 3. That's what I did. I think what I stopped at was season 3, episode 11. I stopped right before the Night Sister arc, which is a great part to continue on because I think it's sort of agreed that this is when the show sort of starts to get into the great territory. I sort of disagree with that. I think there's a lot of great episodes in seasons 1, 2, and 3 before the Night Sisters arc, but I think certainly it starts a lot of good things. So the Night Sisters arc is a 3-episode arc for basically Asajj Ventress and Savage Opress and Count Dooku. So essentially what happens is like Darth Sidious like does a call with Count Dooku, and he's like, your apprentice is getting very powerful. I would hate to think that you're going to use her to overthrow me and take my place as Dark Lord of the Sith, the master of the Dark Lord of the Sith. And this is very good because it's very true to character for Palpatine and very true to character for the Sith, like the paranoia, the use of power, all that stuff. So he demands his apprentice prove his loyalty by ordering the droids to kill Asajj Ventress, his apprentice. And I like that he's kind of reluctant to do this, and it kind of felt he was reluctant on two levels. Both, like, she is powerful, and I don't think he really wants to on a personal level. So, yeah, she's, like, attacked, and then she escapes to Dathomir, which is her home planet of these witches, and she vows revenge. And, is this the episode where they attempt an assassination on Dooku? Let me check. I think that this episode is the episode where there is a initial attempt by Ventress to attack Count Dooku, but they fail, and this is a very good scene if it's from the episode I'm thinking of. Essentially, they use this poison dart to dull his senses, and then they attack him with like green and blue lightsabers, so he thinks it's just Jedi. And this is a very cool scene, and I love how it makes Dooku seem in total control, even when he's been drugged. It is pretty great. But essentially, she fails, and then the next episode, she and Mother Talzin, who's like the witch mother concoct a plan to get revenge. They're essentially going to get this other Zabrak, I think, is his race, his species, named Savage Opress, and they basically, like, get this guy that's kind of a good-mannered person, nice person, and, sorry, I kind of, like, froze up there for a second. They get this guy that's like a nice person with his brother, and he sort of sacrifices himself to protect his brother and become Asajj's apprentice. And then the end of the episode, Asajj forces him to kill his brother. And this is after they've used the magic on him to, like, make his mind all angry and stuff. And then the last episode of the arc is Savage Opress, like, furthers his training with Count Dooku, and he sort of is being pursued by the Jedi because he had attacked a Jedi temple in the Outer Rim, and he's basically like a savage. He's just really strong and really brutish, but he doesn't have much training. And then the episode ends with, like, Asajj revealing herself to her master that she survived, and then she gives the order to Savage to attack Dooku, and it fails horribly, but Asajj escapes again. And he also runs away from Asajj, who's like, he's sick of being controlled, essentially. And that is a great arc, like I said. Then right after that, we go into the Mortis arc, which is another great arc about these, like, Force gods on this weird Force planet. And essentially, I'll just summarize this together. It sort of is about the Force gods searching for the chosen one, or the rumored chosen one, Anakin Skywalker, to see if that he really is who they say he is. And throughout this, there's lots of conflict with the dark side god, and it's supposed to be like a father, son, and daughter. Father's in the middle, daughter is the light side, son is the dark side. And there's some great scenes where, like, Ahsoka is possessed and then dies, but the light side god sacrifices herself to save Ahsoka, basically. Well, she sacrifices herself to save her father first, and then in her dying act, she saves Ahsoka, which is a great scene. And it's like a perfect way to do resurrection. Resurrection does not work in cinema, really. We're not even going to talk about the sequels where it was completely nonsensical and not canon, as we say, not canon. Like, it was just, like, no sensitivity. It didn't make any sense. But this made sense because, A, it was self-contained to, like, this one planet. And they also happened to be Force gods, you know. And also, the death of Ahsoka, something paid for it, which was the life of the daughter, the Force god. So it was not a meaningless sacrifice, you know. And yeah, I think that's the only way resurrection can really be done. It can't be meaningless. It has to be well explained. It has to make sense. And there has to be some sort of trade-off. And I liked how they did it here. It was very powerful. And we get to see how much Anakin cares about his apprentice, who's kind of like his daughter in a way, in my opinion. And then the final episode is like, well, actually, before this, Anakin does prove himself to the father to be the chosen one, but then in the last episode, Anakin, like, for a short amount of time, does turn to the dark side because he thinks he has to do it to save the galaxy, which kind of alludes to the fact that in real life Anakin does turn to the dark side because he's thinking he has to do it to save his wife, and he also thinks that he's like ending the war and stuff, but I guess it's mostly for his wife, but it shows he can be like manipulated to do terrible things for a good purpose, at least in his mind. But then the episode ends, and Anakin is shown visions of like Darth Vader and all the terrible things he does, and he thinks that he has to go to the dark side. But the episode ends with the father removing this from his memory. The son is killed, and they leave Mortis, and it is a great arc. I kind of explained it a little messed up, but it's one of the finest arcs they made. It's rated really highly. 8.9, 8.6, 8.9. The next arc is also very good. It's the Citadel Prison Break arc. This is a great arc with Evan Peel, the Jedi Master that's kind of like a white version of Yoda. He has really big ears. And it also includes Captain Tarkin, who later becomes Grand Moff Tarkin in episode 4. And this is a very good arc, and it's sort of like more of an action-packed arc than the one before. Sorry, I yawned. And, you know, it's like in a prison set piece, and I really like the last episode because, you know, it kind of goes wrong at the end, and like a Republic strike team is sent to like invade the planet, and Plo Koon like blasts through the blockade, and they like extract them as they're like stranded on an island surrounded by lava. It's pretty sick. I really like the scenes in the Clone Wars, which like feel like a real war, and that felt like a real war. Like the heroic general punching an opening through the blockade, like racing down to save the stranded men he has on the, or men and women he has on the sort of this stranded island surrounded by droids and lava. And it was awesome. I love that last episode. And it's also a great moment for Ahsoka because Evan Peel dies in only her presence, and he essentially gives the hyperspace coordinates, the secret hyperspace coordinates that he had been hiding for the whole episode, specifically to her. So she becomes an important part of the mission, and that's significant because she snuck onto the mission. She was never meant to be a part of it, and I really like that. And the last two is a small arc, underrated. It's 7.6 and 7.9. It's a little more not important in terms of the subject matter, but essentially Ahsoka gets kidnapped by these Trandoshans who are pretty savage. Like, they just like kidnap little children and they let them loose in the jungle, and then they come and hunt them every morning. So they're really messed up people. And okay, I think this arc is actually one of like the most that gets like the most anger, I would say, for the audience, at least for me, because I think the Trandoshans in that scene are like so despicable, and there's like no chance like the kids can actually like defend themselves at all because they don't have weapons. They can't even steal weapons because they're like, they can be disabled remotely. And Ahsoka eventually escapes, but not before she finds like a group of Jedi younglings who was also kidnapped, and she leads all but one of them to escape. We also see Chewbacca, who's captured by the Trandoshans, and like the Wookiees and the Trandoshans are enemies, I'm pretty sure. It's a very good arc. It's kind of like, it's very self-contained. Like, it doesn't really add to the story of the Clone Wars per se, but it adds to Ahsoka's story for sure, and that's what I enjoy, because it shows that like Anakin taught her well, but also that she's capable of defending herself and like leading the other Padawans who she found on the planet that were sort of demoralized because they thought they could never leave. And yeah, I do really like that. But we're now into season 4, which we're definitely not going to finish. So we will like get halfway again. Maybe next week I'll do the end of season 4. The beginning of season 4 is a arc on Mon Calamari, and it sort of follows a civil war between the Mon Calamari and the Quarren, who both live on the island. I'm not the biggest fan of this arc. I always find it like kind of underwhelming. Like I didn't really like the Prince character. I think he was just like overly uh I guess ideal. He just didn't have like an edge to him. And also I guess the best thing about this for me is like Kid Fisto's in it. But other than that, it's a good arc, no doubt. It's still worth watching, but it's not my favorite, and I really never go out of my way to rewatch it if I'm looking for like a just a few episodes to see. I will always like not pick this, but if I'm watching the whole show, I for sure will see it. And that's a perfect segue. The next two, oh no, sorry. There's a one-off episode on Naboo, which I really like. Underrated. It's 7.1, but I really like it. It's like Grievous tries to invade Naboo again, but he's captured. But then Anakin's captured, and there's a prisoner swap. I really enjoyed this episode. It's a good one-off. Very underrated. It is not a 7.1. I mean, we've been over this, like that IMDb back in the day, people rated way harsher. But, like, if you look at individual Bad Batch episodes, they're generally higher than the Clone Wars, at least the early seasons. But then the overall show is rated lower, which tells you people rate the individual episodes, like, based on hype. But then when they actually think about how much they like the show, they're like, yeah, no, it's not as good as Clone Wars. And that's accurate. Alright, but the next two episodes, I completely recommend skipping. They are like the definition of filler. They are just R2D2 and C3PO episodes. They're very boring. I always skip them. They're called Mercy Mission and Nomad Droids. They're rated in the 6s. That might even be overrated. It's really not worth it. Okay, and then we're gonna end on the Umbara arc. So the premise of this is really good. The Republic has invaded a neutral world for supply reasons, so they're kind of the aggressor in this situation. Although it is justified, but they're still the aggressor. Uh, Essentially what happens is like we start with Obi-Wan and Anakin like fighting in this very unique planet where the weapons are very very different than anything we've seen. They have like these green energy weapons. They have tanks that kind of resemble animals. And all of a sudden they're called back to Coruscant, and command of the 501st Legion is given to Jedi Master Krell, who immediately, like, he is not a likable person at all. And he just like seems to dislike clones. And so we see this for a while. The next episode, they have to conquer an airbase, and it's clear that General Krell is giving very, very difficult orders that have very little regard for if they're actually possible, and also very little regard for the amount of casualties the troops will take. So this is leaving a bad taste in like Rex's mouth and all the men under him. But also, I remember watching this for the first time as a kid. I remember vividly thinking, like, oh, he's just, like, I was making excuses for him. I was like, no, he's a Jedi. He's just, he does things differently. He's trying to get victory. Um, so it's kind of hard to believe a Jedi would act like this. But you do make excuses for him because of the reputation of the Jedi. And then the next episode is basically the clones are basically starting to realize that Krell is just giving crazy orders where they're all going to die for nothing, and he's ignoring any suggestions to make victory easier or lessen casualties of the troops. So these or three clones come up with a plan to steal some Umbaran fighters and go up to the separatist supply ship and blow it up from the inside. So they basically disobey orders and do this. However, the end of the episode is like Krell sentences them to death for treason, even though they successfully did it. And the final episode is the troopers refusing to execute the clones, and then like all of a sudden Krell like gives the order to go out and fight the Umbarans, who supposedly have taken clone armor and are using it to disguise themselves as clones. So the clones and the Umbarans go fight each other, but what do you know? The Umbarans were not disguised as clones, and Krell sent two of his own armies to kill each other. And this is an incredibly powerful scene, directed wise, emotion wise, and as a character wise for like Rex and Krell and like all the clones that were refusing to accept that Krell was insane. Like at this point, he's lost all credibility, and they go back and they arrest him, and they sort of realize that the airbase may be taken and Krell will be released, so they have to execute him, which, you know, is a big thing to do without a trial. It should be illegal. But the one clone that has the guts to do it is Dogma, the guy that was the most gullible and the most subservient to the general. Kills this Jedi Krell, who essentially was a dark Jedi who intended to lose the battle for the Republic and turn over Umbara to the Separatists and become Count Dooku's apprentice. So it is an amazing arc in terms of direction, creative, just the creativeness of like the planet, the species, the weapons were really cool. The action is awesome, and like the powerful moments were great. And the character of Krell was a fantastic, very annoying villain that was very satisfying when he died. But anyway, I enjoyed this. We did like halfway of season 4. We'll finish the rest next time. But yeah, that's been Nima Goldblum on KUCI 88.9 Irvine. Peace out.